Welcome everyone to the Success Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Ari Jakobov, and in today's episode, we're doing something a little bit different. I was recently interviewed on the Next Level Agents podcast with Kevin Kaufman, and it turned into one of the most powerful conversations I've ever had on what it really takes to succeed in real estate. We talked about how I went from cold calling out of my bedroom to closing over $75 million in sales, the mindset I call the sponge mentality, and how being relentlessly curious and consistent with your lead generation can change everything. If you're an agent trying to break through to the next level, this episode is for you. Let's get into it.
All right, guys, we're back. Next Level Agents. I'm excited for this episode. Joined by my friend, Ari Jakobov, here in the Phoenix area. Ari, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, Kevin? Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, dude, I'm glad we could do this. Ari, I met you, it's been a couple years ago now, maybe, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago at EXPCon. And I remember sitting next to you at dinner one night while we were there, and you and I just started talking, right, about business and life and stuff like that. And I was impressed at your ability to learn from whatever situation you're in. Not saying that you had a lot to learn from me or not, but like when we were talking, the feeling I got from you, and I recognize this because I try to do this myself, is that you were trying to learn whatever you could in that moment. And that stood out to me. Do you think about that? Like, do you actually approach stuff like that?
Yeah, I love that you noticed that because that's exactly it. I try to be a sponge everywhere I go, and I try to learn as much as I can about any person I'm just meeting and talking to. I just want to grow. That's it. And I know exactly how successful you are. And so in that moment, I wanted to really just hear your story and like capitalize on that and like make you feel important as well. I think there really is a benefit in asking questions. One, you learn a lot if you ask the right questions. And two, you make the other person feel genuinely important. And I just learned that's probably the best way to build relationships. So that's really what I wanted to do in the moment, and I'm glad I was able to build a closer relationship with you. It's been awesome for my business and just learning what kind of person you are and just seeing everything you do for everyone.
Dude, I appreciate that. I'm going to share this. I picked up my phone because I'm going to share a quote with you that I keep saved. Because you probably know this quote is my guess, but it's going to make sense to you. It's been said that after meeting with the great British Prime Minister, William Gladstone, you left with a feeling that he was the smartest person in the world. But after meeting with his rival, Benjamin Disraeli, you left thinking you were the smartest person.
Wow.
And that's something that I've tried to, I don't know if live up to is the right word or not, but I think something you and I have in common is we're naturally curious people, and we want to learn from whatever scenario it is we're in, good or bad, right? We want to learn from people, but also there's a difference in getting someone to think you're really smart versus getting them to feel like they're the smartest person. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an incredible skill when you talk about relationship building. The fact that you even said that to me is so good. Like, it tells me that it really is important to you. And I could see why you've already had the amount of success you've had in your first 4 years in real estate.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And at the end of the day, I learned a lot from Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny because most people will just read a piece of material once and they'll call it a day. They'll be like, oh, I read the book, and they check it off their list. Well, I like to take it a step further. I'm very extreme. And so that book, not only did I read once, I read it twice. And not only did I read it twice, I actually signed up for his in-person class. It's a 6-week course. It's like 4 hours a day. And I signed up and I took the course, and it was awesome. And not only did I take the course once, I took it again. And I was like I would say an assistant coach for that class. Just for free. Just I didn't want to get paid for it or anything. I just wanted to soak in the information again and again and again. And one of the biggest principles I learned from Dale Carnegie was genuinely be interested in the other person. That's where magic happens. Like I said earlier, you learn about them, you make them feel important, and you walk away with a new relationship established. You walk away with making someone else feel better about themselves, about their story, making them feel special. And so I've taken that principle with me, whether it's, relationship building or attracting new clients or just really trying to understand someone's situation. It's literally helped me in every facet of life. And so I'm grateful to have learned that.
That's awesome. First of all, my neighbor across the street owns like some franchise for like Carnegie, like some sort of school, if you will. I'm curious if it was through theirs. We'll talk about that offline. But you just said something else to me, and it's curiosity that I think is so important. I have a lot of friends, and probably people that you know as well, that may not like me after hearing me say this, but like they'll say things like, I don't want to go to fill in the blank event because I hate small talk. My viewpoint on that is like, then why are you starting small talk?
Right.
Like, why aren't you curious enough about the other person to just have a real I hate small talk too. I literally hate small talk. I do too, but like I want to know what makes Ari tick. Dude, the reason I started this podcast like 6 years ago was because I already had a habit of sitting down with other agents that were kicking butt one way or the other, because I wanted to learn about what they were doing, how they were doing it, what made them tick, things like that, from a place of curiosity. Some of it's selfish because like I can then get better too. Like I could take this from Ari, I could take this from Chris, I can learn this from Brittany, right? All these different people that I can learn from. But the base of it was like my curiosity about them as a person. And what I always found was like, that's why it feels easy for me to like have deep, rich relationships with people.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think that's vital. And anyone who's not wanting to go into a room because they don't like small talk, that just means they don't like their own communication skills. Because if you don't like small talk, well, you better bet like you're the one starting that small talk. You're the one keeping that small talk going.
Yeah.
And so if you want to change your conversations, you have to actually take a step to change the conversation. And I think people are just sometimes too timid to just ask deeper level questions. Like, just hit the question, just ask it. Who cares, right? Especially with me, like I am an open book. Like I have nothing to hide, and I love deep conversations. And so when people ask me deep questions, like I'll give a deep answer. And I also think it's really important the way questions are asked, because sometimes, and this goes really like hand in hand for sales as well. Sometimes people will ask a question like this. They'll be like, "Hey, Kevin, what's your favorite color?" Right? And then all of a sudden you get a one-word answer like red. But if someone were to ask you, "Hey, Kevin, what's your favorite color and why?" Like just the tonality and the pause and asking that open-ended question, why, is going to transform the conversation. And this is a very like lower level example. It's very like surface level. But if you think about this on like a deeper level, when you're asking a prospect a question, hey, instead of saying, "Why do you want to sell your house?" say, "Hey, what is it that that's even prompting you to consider selling?" Notice the verbal pauses. Notice the curious tone. Like that right there is going to prompt them to take more time and put more thought in answering your question based on just how you ask it. And people, I think, only use that, I don't want to say technique, but use that tonality when it comes to sales. But that just goes for any conversation or relationship building. Like you want to show them you're genuinely interested. And so I think that's something I've learned along the way that's helped me a lot with actually building relationships and showing people I care.
I love that you use the example of like favorite color. That's a very low stakes question,
Right?
But it's a great way to practice. I learned that from a gentleman by the name of Phil Jones, who wrote a book called Exactly What to Say. Like he sold millions of copies.
Love that book.
There's a real estate version of the book as well, Exactly What to Say for real estate agents. Highly recommend everybody read one, if not both of those books. They're amazing. And when I was interviewing Phil the first time, we were talking about that. He's like, basically what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you opportunities to practice low stakes situations. Like an example he gave me was like, husband and wife who were like trying to figure out dinner, or like where to go for dinner. He's like, hey, if you can't negotiate that and have that conversation for dinner, like what makes you think you're going to be able to use language patterns and communication to like land $1 million client, right? So practice with low stake things. Favorite color. That's a great example. That's it's no stakes, right?
Yeah, of course.
Nothing's on the line with that, but it is a great way to practice communication skills. And you're right. When you ask questions with that tonality, when you just ask the deeper question, you open yourself up to learning so much more. I think of too, I've had a few people, not everybody, a lot of people who like sports are like, who's your favorite team? But I've only had a few people be like, well, why are they your favorite team? And then I get to tell them about my dad, or, if we're talking about baseball or football. And then they're like, oh, I've literally had people that don't like sports ask me that, and then all of a sudden they're rooting for the Dodgers, or they're rooting for the Raiders because I've sold them on it because they asked a deeper question.
Stories sell. That's also part of it, I think. But yeah, I love that. And like that is again another super simple example, but the fact that you have a story behind that to tell it just goes a long way. And so if you're asking the right questions, you're using the right tonality, you have a story behind, answers, it makes it a lot easier not to have boring, mundane, surface level conversations. So I absolutely love that you say that.
Yeah. Well, dude, tell me about your business. Like one of the things that I'm impressed with is the way you've come into the business. You learned a lot, what appears to be very quickly to me. I believe you've chosen like the hardest route, which is like, that's a compliment. Yeah. Like you're on the phones, bro. Like you've made it happen by grinding the hard way. And I love that about you. Tell us a little bit about your business, kind of where you started, why you got into real estate, and then we'll kind of dive into a few other parts.
Yeah, no, of course. So long story short, about 3.5 years ago, I was coasting through college. I was over at ASU, and I was going to get my finance degree. Why was I getting my finance degree? Because I guess my parents wanted me to. Like that's the real answer. It was going to provide security, stability, everything they tell you to do, right? And so, one day I kind of came home from college and I had a realization. I'm like, hey, like, why am I in school? Like, what if I just became an entrepreneur? Because I always had it in me. At 16 years old, I started a drop shipping business. It failed. At 17, I started drop shipping. It failed. 18, I started another bit. Like, I had so many businesses and they kept failing, but something was just calling me towards the entrepreneurship route and started my own business. So I came back home that day from college and I told my parents, hey, I want to drop out of college. And my parents looked at me and they said, are you crazy? And I was like, no, I seriously want to do it. And they told me, Ari, who's going to respect you? You're not going to make any money. Like, you need a college degree to succeed. And I said, well, what do you mean? Like, I could become a realtor and sell houses. And my parents are like, you're 18 years old. Who do you know that wants to buy or sell a house? And I said, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. And we had this conversation for months, back and forth. And every time it would end up in them raising their voice because they genuinely wanted the best for me. And they don't know anyone who took the entrepreneurship route and succeeded at a super high level. And so long story short, I ended up dropping out of college, even though I had a scholarship on the line. I said, screw this, I'm doing it. I got my real estate license before I dropped out. And so I was ready to go. I joined a brokerage. It was a flat fee company. Didn't get any mentorship whatsoever. My mentors were on YouTube. I was watching just a bunch of videos on how to cold call for sale by owners, how to cold call expireds. And that's what I started doing. And so I was in my bedroom alone at my parents' house calling for 6, 7, 8 hours every single day by myself. No mentorship, no guidance, nothing. And it was rejection. No, screw off, fuck off. I don't want to do business with you. You sound young. You don't know what you're doing. And the funniest part about it is they weren't wrong. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know what an inspector was. I didn't know what an escrow company was. I didn't know what earnest money was. Like, I was so green, but all I knew is I had this burning desire to succeed, and I had no other choice, because if I failed, the world would be over. My parents would be right. All my friends and family would be right. And at the end of the day, I had to prove them wrong. And so what I did is I made the calls for about a month. No success. I broke down in tears crying, and I was like, I have to make this work. And so I realized I needed mentorship. So what I did was I went on Google and I searched up open houses in Scottsdale. And I found this open house, and I drove over, and my intention wasn't to just see the house. My intention was to meet that agent that had that listing. And so I walk into this open house, and I'm like, hey, I'm an agent, and I'm just kind of curious, like, how'd you get this $800,000 listing? That's crazy. And she's like, oh, like my company trained you. I was like, your company trained you? That's a thing? And I ended up grabbing her business card. I slept on it. 2 weeks later, I called that broker, went in for an interview. I ended up joining. And I joined the number one team at the company at the time, and I was the youngest agent in the entire company. And essentially, I just saw what people were doing. I saw people going on 3 or 4 listing appointments a day. This was during the peak of the market. And I would be the first one in the office, and I was the last one to leave. 12 to 14-hour days, and I would just work for free. I would just shadow people on their listing appointments. I would listen to them, exactly how they spoke, exactly what they said. And no one was really dialing. It was 72 sold at the time, so everyone was kind of just given leads. But I was still learning their scripts just by going on the appointments. And what I did was I took my discipline of cold calling and I paired it with the scripts that I was learning. And within my first 2 weeks, I ended up setting a listing appointment. I signed my first listing on the spot. I sold the house within 24 hours because that's how crazy the market was. And a month later, I cashed my first check for $10,000. And that was the moment where I realized I had it. And from there, I ended up continuing to do the dials, continuing to learn, never let my ego get in the way, still being a student to the game always. And my first year, by the end of it, I did over $20 million in sales. I closed 45 homes, and I was one of the top agents in the entire company and the youngest. About 1.5 to 2 years in, I ended up parting ways from the team. We had a falling out, and I ended up starting my own team. And from there, I just continued to absorb information. At this point, I was over at EXP under Chris Bowers and you guys over there. And really, what you guys taught me was how to actually run a business. Instead of just being a real estate agent and chasing that next deal, like I was learning leverage, delegation, systems, lead generation. I was learning everything I needed to know to actually scale. And I plugged in those systems, and fast forward to today, I run my own real estate team. We've got 10 agents. I have a coaching business as well, where I coach agents one-on-one or in a group setting. And I've done over $75 million in sales within the last 3.5 years. And so I'm just super blessed to be where I'm at, and super blessed to have had the mentorship that's taken me to where I'm at.
That's awesome, man. I love that. Something you said, I love you said at 72 sold, like, I know some people have hard feelings about Greg. I don't. I think he's a marketing genius. But you had no shortage of leads, but you combined that with the mindset of like, I'm going to scratch and claw for everything.
Yep.
With the leads. And when you do that, like, that's how Fred and I built our business, man, is I've cold called. I don't like it. I'm not a cold caller. I've done it. However, if you end up in my CRM because I either bought your contact information through like a lead company, you were referred to me, or you actually clicked on one of my ads and said, give me more information, like, I will call you forever. Mm-hmm. And I will follow up with you relentlessly. Like that is my game. And I will do it longer than anybody else because I know that everybody else will quit. And so it's very similar approach, right? Like I believe you take that mindset and you just take that everywhere you go, whether we're talking about internet leads, whether we're talking about literal call-ins, whatever.
Yeah.
And you can't lose. You just literally can't lose.
I agree, and I love that mentality. And here's the thing. I grew up playing chess, and so I was always taught to think a few steps ahead. And so when I joined the company, and after having a little bit of success, I realized that all these agents, they're only successful because they're being handed leads. And I knew that one day the market's going to turn, and these leads won't always be here. And that's why I made it a priority to become excellent on the phones. I was really the only one in the company that was cold calling. Like literally the only one that I knew of that was actually making dials. No one else wanted to because they were getting leads. And so I only did it because I thought a few steps ahead. And so what happened is about 4 or 5 months being into the business, the market completely turned. Rates increased. This was April of 2022. As you know, rates increased, market turned, and everyone was in panic. Homes were taking longer to sell. Lead flow slowed down significantly. And guess what? I was not in panic because I had consistent lead flow. I knew how to dial, and I knew how to convert leads. And so all of a sudden I realized like people wanted to learn. And so I was helping other people on my team learn, and I was training them, like literally being less than a year into the business. And I just want to say, like, I'm so grateful for having that mentality and knowing that I had to find a way to hunt for myself. And that's why my team right now, I don't feed them leads. I teach them how to hunt because I want them to be prosperous forever. I don't want them to rely on leads. And that's the way I've built my business. And that's the way I mentor others is through having a lead source you can rely on. Because in this business that we're in, most agents don't know if they're going to cash a check in 2 or 3 months. Most agents don't. And so it could be really stressful and worrisome. But I'm in such a place of confidence and like serenity within my business because I know I can just get on the phones and close a deal, whether it's 300K or 4 million. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll call them all and I'll make sure it's closed. And so I know I can always put food on the table for myself. So any agent out there that like is struggling, like, you've got to find a lead generation method that works. And I've tried many lead gen strategies, and honestly, the best one from my experience by a long shot is cold calling. It is the most scalable. It is the most leverageable. You can dial 3 people at once. You can't talk to 3 people at once at your open house. You can't talk to 3 internet leads at once. But I can hit up the Mojo dialer and I can dial 3 leads at once. There's an abundance of expired leads. They're extremely low cost. I'm not paying thousands of dollars. I'm not setting up signs. All I'm doing is I'm in an air-conditioned room at a desk with music in the background, my cup of coffee with raw milk in it, good vibes, and I'm freaking dialing. And I've got my team beside me, and we freaking love it because we've got energy, we've got community, and we know exactly what to say, how to say it to get a lead to convert. And so when you find your groove and your momentum, like, this business goes from really stressful and sickening to very, very exciting and optimistic. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people they feel like that the business can be inconsistent, or the paychecks, I should say, can be inconsistent, and they can be if you are, but then they can also be consistent if you're consistent. Like, if you'll just do something I heard come from you a few minutes ago was like, you've got this confidence of, it doesn't matter what the market does because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do every day. And that's true. Like, it doesn't matter what the market does because Ari's going to get up and work every day. I'm going to get up and work every day. And if we do that, then everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah, no, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And really where where agents see the peaks and valleys is when they stop lead generating. And their excuse to stopping lead generating is going to be, well, I have business, I need a service, right? And so they get a deal, they spend a month servicing the deal finally closes, and then their pipeline is dry because they stopped prospecting for a month. And so the agents that are the most successful are the ones that know how to delegate. And it's not just delegating, but it's also delegating and providing a better experience for clients, because most agents don't want to delegate because they don't know how to do it while providing a better service. They think their clients are going to get a worse service. But in fact, I know my clients get a better service because they get to see houses on their schedule. They have systems in place. They have weekly updates. There are systems to it, like an actual business, rather than a operation with no boundaries, and so it's really important to stay lead generating every single day and time block efficiently, and never let your ego get in the way, because there's always so much more to learn.
Fred and I brought this up on a recent interview I did too, and you just reminded me again. Fred and I used to have this we used to have this saying on our wall that one of our mentors said to us early on, which was, never let your current business get in the way of new business.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a way of saying, like, you've got to wake up every day unemployed, because you are, and go get employed again. And then go service your business later. But like, you've got to have this block of time every day. And I'm not here to tell people it needs to be 6 hours or 3 hours or 1 hour. I'm not here to tell you what it needs to be. Like, it needs to be based on your skill level and conversion rate to hit your goals. But you got to spend time every single day focused on building new business.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what's really cool about that is, when you start off, like when I started, I had to spend 6 to 8 hours dialing every day, which was cool. And it was easy to do because I had no other business I needed to service, right? But as my business grows and my skills increase, I don't have to dial as much. Like, I probably spend an hour a day dialing, and I'm at 15 million in sales, and we're in April. So, why I say that is because the skill level is so important, like, to constantly be increasing that and learning. So, like, there's so much to learn when it comes to cold calling efficiently, because you can cold call and close deals. That's without a doubt. Anyone can cold call and close deals without experience, but is it going to be the most efficient? And the answer is no, unless you have amazing training. And so, the biggest thing that I teach my team on is, obviously, we don't believe in scripts. We believe in frameworks. And you just mold the framework to your own personality. And we believe in massive accountability. We believe in pattern interrupts and proper tonality. And if you have all those, you're literally bound to succeed. And so, like, a pattern interrupt would look like is this. And again, to backtrack, like, the point of a pattern interrupt on a cold call is so you don't sound like every single other caller. It's to differentiate yourself. And so you can't be like, hey, is this Kevin? Hey, Kevin, this is Ari with XYZ Real Estate. I'm calling about your click. Like, anyone would hang up on that, like, so fast, especially when the lead is getting 100 calls a day. Expireds are by far the most competitive lead source. And so it's really important to, like, differentiate yourself. And so one of the ways that I do it, I'll give you a pattern interrupt, is, hey, is this Kevin? Yeah, Kevin, you got an absolutely stunning home right there on 123 Main Street. Hey, really quick, are you still considering selling that by chance? And so I started the conversation off with a compliment. I started it off with massive energy, not super like salesy energy, but energy to where, like, oh, dang, who is this guy? And that right there makes the world of a difference, because typically when people are dialing, their energy is, like, stagnant. Because, like, it's lead after lead after lead. They're probably scrolling on their phone through Instagram while the dialer is running. And then next thing you know, someone picks up and they're like, oh, okay. And then it's like a robotic, hey, this is Ari with EXP. And so it's really important to have your energy in check and have those proper pattern interrupts. And then we have the framework where it's, you do the intro, and then we bring the problem to the surface. We give them confidence that their home should have sold. And then we find out the motivation, and then we use that motivation for our pre-close, where we force them into a yes by saying, yes, they do want to sell. and then we close. And so like I have a whole like structure that I teach, and it's pretty cool. And like I started the team because it's funny. A lot of my mentors told me, Ari, like, don't start the team. You're going to make a lot more money just like focusing on your own production. And while they may have been right, I told them, I'm not doing this for the money. Like, I genuinely want to do this because it's fulfilling and I love seeing people grow. And so there's a guy, Teddy, that joined my team very recently. And within the first 2 hours of him calling, he set a $700,000 listing appointment. This is a brand new agent, by the way.
Wow.
Like 7 months in the business. He's never had like a listing of this size. He set a $700,000 listing appointment, and he set up another lead that's going to be buying and selling a house with him in Optima. So like, it's probably close to like $2 million worth of production he was able to pull out in just 2 hours of dialing with the proper framework that I taught him, and the tonality and obviously the daily training that we do. And that's what I love. Like, that is the fulfilling part of this business, is to be able to help people and see them actually like achieve results.
You and I have talked about this before, and I'm going to keep reminding you, dude, don't forget that. Like, you should build a team. And I don't say that to everybody, because I don't think that everybody should. And but the reality is and I love our friends that you and I are around that basically don't believe in big teams, but it's because they've never experienced a high functioning one or a highly profitable one. And by the way, that's okay. Maybe they just shouldn't have a team. Like, it's not the right marriage with their skill set and personalities, but for you it is. And I know we've talked about this before, and I'm going to continue to remind you, like, you should pursue this, because first of all, yes, you can keep a higher percentage of your money if you keep it tight and it's just you with I'll call it a solo agent business. Mm-hmm. But actually, if you want to make the most amount of money over the long run and plus impact more people's lives, it takes people. And the way we do that in our industry is by building teams. And by the way, having a team opens you up to so many other opportunities beyond just having a freaking high net profit. And there's nothing wrong with having just a high net profit, but there is something more that is amazing on the other side of having not just a big team, but a high functioning team. And I hope you continue to pursue that, because I do believe, like, not just skill set wise, but like personality wise and who you are as a person, like, that's in you, and you can make a bigger impact that way.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I agree. And I have nothing against like the solo agents that think business is better done that way. I think, like you said, it's
good for them.
It's all about like your personality style, right? And it works for some and it doesn't work for others. But I know that I want to run a very selfless business and help as many people as I can. And, this has been the way. And maybe a team isn't for some people. And that's what I've realized. Like, teams aren't for everyone. And so that's why I started doing coaching outside of my team, where, agents will hit me up and I'll train them super, super well. I'll give them everything they need to succeed. And so like, that's been really fulfilling as well. And
how long have you been doing that now?
I just started doing that about probably a month ago.
Did you say you're doing some of that like in group sessions and some one-on-one stuff?
Yeah. Group sessions and one-on-one. It just depends on like what you need more so.
Okay.
Like what the agent themselves like needs and like where they're at in their business.
How does somebody check that out? Like, because I promise you, like, someone's listening, whether they're ready or not, or they think they're ready or not, like, they could use help. Like, they could use a nudge in the right direction from someone who's further down the path that they want to be on. Like, how does somebody reach out to you and kind of learn about that?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Ari.Jakobov. And that's Jakobov. I know I had to clarify that one. People are like, Jacko, what? So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. You can Google me and you'll find me pretty quickly, I think. And yeah, hit me up and I'm more than happy. Like, anyone who finds me through this podcast, I'll offer a free one-on-one coaching session for half an hour, just to help out and see if I could help. Really just understanding someone's goals and helping them get to where they want to go is what I love to do.
That's awesome, man. Dude, I appreciate it. I feel like you and I could probably talk for another 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, probably.
Of which we don't have that kind of time today. So maybe we'll just call this part 1, and we'll have to circle back for part 2 soon.
All right. Sounds good, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, Ari. Really quick, say your Instagram is the best place for people that want to catch up with you.
Yep. Instagram is great. Ari.Jakobov.
Awesome. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Yep. See ya.